I wanted to define some things for the channel because I know that these sort of woo-woo conversations can get a little heady, and you can sort of really get lost in the sauce, as they say. So I wanted to define spirit, ego, soul, and not that this is the way thing. This is what the ego is. Mostly because this is how it is based on hermetics, and I feel like a lot of the new age wave gets its fill from hermetics and alchemy and that realm. It seems to bleed over, so we might as well establish some common ground, and we can hash it out in the comment section if you think I haven't got it quite right, but let's give it a shot. Okay, are you ready? Okay, step one. What is spirit? Spirit, keep it simple. We'll give spirit's opposite. It's nice to have opposites. It helps us define things. I know what I'm saying. So the opposite of spirit would be matter. Like, I'm walking on this floor right now. That is very dense matter. The opposite of matter, as matter gets lighter, changes shape, changes form, becomes a gas, and then is returned to its original atoms if high enough. You know what I mean? I'm talking heat here, or fires, things like that, releasing the matter into spirit. Which I guess we could use for a good example. Matter gets... Oh, la 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 la. About to get a copyright claim on this video, thanks. Think of water. You heat up water, the molecules vibrate faster, and as a result, the water gets released as steam. It's still H2O, but it's in a different form. If you heat it hot enough, the bonds actually break down. The hydrogen gets released. The oxygen gets released. You heat it more, and then it breaks down into its subatomic particles ad infinitum. It happens with sound. It happens with everything. So spirit, and then we'll say ultimate spirit is the all. Like the all, the substantial reality that it's existing within everything. That is the container for all things. That is ultimate spirit. And then it stretches down to earth. And then everything that, well, we can't even say that the all is ultimate spirit, because even that doesn't fit either. The reason for being, we've talked about in other videos before. And that's it. So where does the ego come into play with that? Where does the soul come into play with that? The soul is the sort of the individualized spark that makes you on a linear, or not linear, but a sort of from lifetime to lifetime. Your congregation of relative particles from lifetime to lifetime, which I guess is also part of the ego, more or less. And the ego is sort of the same thing. It's the lens in which you're having your perception of the universe. That's what the ego / soul is. It is the individualized thing that is you. So if you and your higher self, whatever you want to call it, all the aggregation of all the things that are you, that's your soul. And if you transcend to 5D, your soul goes to 5D. Right? It's not keyth in the flesh, though it can be. Different conversation. We'll go this way. It's getting loud over there. Different conversation. But that's what the soul is, and that's what the ego is. So when you hear people talking about losing the ego, that's what's happening. You're getting rid of the lens that makes you, and you're experiencing reality, from like this weird bird's eye view where you are everything all at the same time, and time doesn't even matter because you've sort of stepped out of that whole matrix. You no longer have your individuality. That's your soul, that's your ego. And those aren't bad things. Those are just, they become bad when we attach, when we see ourselves as the lens and not as the thing peering through the lens. Right? We are not a soul. We are something we utilize the soul to transcend the dimensions, more or less. The same way we use our physical body to transcend, at least specifically, the third dimension, and that's it. But on top, I guess the biggest thing to note is we have these vehicles in every dimension, and if we forget how that works, like, that's when dark shit starts to happen. That's when the wars, that's when the fear, that's when the chaos, because that conscious mind is very particular. It's very me, as it must be. It's very individualized. It cuts the rest off. It cuts sorts off, and in a way, it has to cut sort off, because the goal is to have a specific experience, right? The all can have any and has any and all experiences simultaneously. There has to be a vessel. That's what the body is. That's what the soul is, because every plane has its vessel. Like, that's why it's called as above, so below. All 7 laws of the Hermetic philosophy reverberate through all dimensions, all time and space. You cannot transcend polarity. I don't care what fucking dimension, 3rd, 4th, 5th dimension. You can't transcend the law of correspondence, the as above, so below. Right? You would literally negate the law of correspondence by definition, saying that there's no polarity in the 5th D, because then it's like, all right, you know what I mean? Gender, again, gender, the law of gender is not sex, it's generation, it's creation, which says masculine and female have to be brought together in a healthy manner in order to create a healthy product. Right? These laws happen everywhere, on every plane. Every plane. The mental, the physical, the spiritual, all of it. So to be, I guess, so I think, is that a proper definition of soul? This, and most of the reason why I bring these up is so that we can have if we're talking under the umbrella of Hermeticism, we can have a more useful conversation. And if you're someone if you catch yourself using the phrase as above, so below, then you're a fucking Hermeticist as far as I'm concerned. Because by definition, as above, so below, which is a law of correspondence, says if it happens here, it happens everywhere, because you cannot have a piece of the effect that does not have a piece of the cause inside of it. So that means every dimension has to have the blueprint of all the previous dimensions. Meaning you cannot have polarity in the 3rd dimension and then it just disappear on every other dimension. You can't have the law of vibration exist on this dimension and then just disappear in like dimensions 10 through 12. You can't have the law of cause and effect in here and it not be, you know what I mean? Like, these laws pervade everything. And it would be how we distinguish, or maybe not how we distinguish, but the reason why it's not so apparent is because where they exist on the scale changes depending upon what dimension you're in. So polarity doesn't look like polarity in the 4th dimension like it looks like polarity in the 3rd dimension, you know? It exists at a higher degree. Which, if you're paying attention, means all you have to do is change your vibration to get to the next dimension. And that's what all the sages teach all the time. This is why that conversation is, you gotta 10 ways to raise your vibration. And this is why, is because if you want to experience a dimension, you have to exist in the same frequency as that dimension, more or less. Of course, there's an infinite amount of in-between worlds. It's not like there's only mind, body, and soul and nothing else. Like, no, there's a whole bunch of things. And there's a mind, body, and soul, and there's a countless in-between worlds. And dialing in with those, and so we'll reel it back in. Right now we have the conversation of what's spirit. Spirit is just... it's the opposite of material. It's like, it's the energy that pervades everything, and and as it extends from oneness, it becomes more dense to the mental plane, and more dense to the emotional plane, and more dense to the physical plane, and then more dense to, a cloud, and more dense to a rock, and more dense to a black hole, and ad infinitum, you know what I mean? It's just, it goes and it goes and it goes, it replicates, matrix after matrix, illusion after illusion, albeit some illusions are more real than others. They're all illusions, right? You cannot not be an illusion if you're somewhere where exists change, because if things are changing all the time, then nothing's fucking real. Therefore, it has to be an illusion.